welcome back to the kitchen. Today we're going to be making some tomato sauce with tomatoes from my garden, and it's a very simple recipe. Basically what I do is I freeze it to save for later in the winter. I think you could can it, I just don't can. So if you're looking for canning advice, this is not your video, but Karen, our adult librarian, has posted some really great videos on our YouTube and Facebook about canning if you're looking for that. So this is going to be a tomato sauce for freezing. We're going to need obviously tomatoes, and we're going to need salt and either sugar or honey, but I like to use the honey. Alright, so I've already washed my tomatoes, so we're going to start chopping those up. We need 4 cups of tomatoes. For every 4 cups of tomatoes, you need 1 teaspoon of sugar or honey and 1 teaspoon of salt. I usually double or triple this, but since this is just a demonstration batch, I'm just going to do 1 batch. Alright, so let's start cutting. See that. There we go. Alright, so I'm going to cut out the top part where the stem was attached. I just usually do it like a little triangle like this. Then there was a little spot there where it's split, so I'm going to cut that off. Just cut off any bad spots or, you know, just anything that doesn't look quite good. Especially if you were planning on canning this. You don't want anything that might be a bad spot in there. Try to cut all your pieces a pretty even size, just so they'll all cook down at the same rate. Alright, that's about 1 cup. Today I'm using the electric skillet here. I don't know if you can see it. Normally at home I would use it on the stovetop in a stainless steel pot, like a wide pot. I forgot to tell you this before, but you also want to cut off a little slice of the blossom end. So this is the stem end where the stem was attached. This is the blossom end where it used to be a flower, and then once the fruit grew, the flower fell off. That's the blossom end. So you want to chop off a little bit of that too. So there's the blossom end on this one. I'm just going to slice a little bit off. Sometimes I forget to do that, but they say you're supposed to, especially if you're going to be canning it, which I'm not, but I still take it off just in case. I didn't get quite enough wash, so I had to wash a few more, and I thought I would also tell you a little bit about these varieties if you're curious. I really like the orange yellowish colored tomatoes. They're really good. They're slightly less acidic than the red ones, so if that matters to you, that's a plus. These are called Lemon Boy, these little small round orange ones. And this one is called Pineapple. This one's an heirloom. Usually they get a whole lot bigger than this. And they're usually yellowish, and a lot of times they'll have reddish stripes going down the side. It's really pretty. Okay, so let's cut these last few tomatoes now. Okay, so I have all my tomatoes in here. I have my skillet plugged in. I'm going to turn it on a while. Okay, I put it on 300. We'll see how that goes. This thing can be kind of fiddly at times. Okay, so now we're going to, oh, and if you were doing this on your stove at home, you should put it on high, and then after you add your salt and honey, you should then put the cover on. And then at that point you let it get to boiling. Then once it's boiling, you stop, stir it a little bit, then you let it simmer for 15 minutes covered, and then you let it simmer another 15 or 20 minutes uncovered, which I'll show you that once we get there. Okay, for right now, we're going to add in our 1 teaspoon of salt while the skillet's heating up, and then our 1 teaspoon of honey. Okay, I don't know if you can hear it, but it just started sizzling. This thing tends to heat up really fast. And if your hands are clean, which they should be, you can just get that last little bit of honey out so you don't waste it. Alright, I'm going to stir it so that we get the honey or sugar and the salt. You know, this isn't really the best. We want to get the sugar and the salt evenly spread over the tomatoes. So that's why we're going to stir them. Alright, so that's pretty even now. Now we're going to cover it and let it get to boiling, which should happen pretty quickly. According to how it's already sizzling and steaming, it's going to get to boiling pretty fast. Electric tends to heat up really quickly. We will need this ladle for later when we go to take the finished sauce and put it in our container. Alright, so as you can see, we are absolutely boiling. So what we want to do is turn this down a little bit. I just turned it down to 225. If you were working on a stovetop, I would say turn it down to medium, which if you have a 1 to 10 dial, that would be like a 5 or a 6 is normally your medium. Just experiment and see how it goes. Alright, so now, okay, so now it's totally, the light just went out and it's not cooking at all. Because with this thing, it's all or nothing apparently. Okay, so now our goal is that we're going to cover it which normally when they say simmer covered, it means leave a little gap like that. It doesn't necessarily mean totally covered. I'm going to turn it down a little bit because it's once again boiling. All we want it to do is simmer. See, this is boiling. What we want is simmering. Simmering is just little bubbles coming up, not a full-on boil. That's the issue with this thing. All right, I will be back in 15 minutes of simmering, and then we'll get to the next step. Alright, so as you can see, it is currently simmering. Actually, what I ended up having to do was just keep standing here and turning this dial on, and then as soon as it's on, it starts to boil. Then turn it off. Then it slowly goes down to a simmer. So I just had to keep turning it on and off because you see, as soon as you turn it down, it turns off, and then in a minute, it's not cooking at all. So it's either full on or nothing with this thing, basically. If you're cooking on a stovetop, it's going to be a lot easier for you. You could just put it on medium, like I said before. Put your lid cracked like that, and then just wait 15 minutes. Check on it every once in a while just to make sure it's not getting up to a boil, or make sure it didn't die down, and just stir it to make sure it's not sticking. But you definitely won't have to stand right over it and keep adjusting the heat like I kept doing with this. That's alright. So it's now been 15 minutes. So the next step of our recipe is that we need to let it simmer uncovered. So we've been simmering it covered, and now we're going to simmer it uncovered for 15 to 20 minutes. I'm probably going to go with 15 because honestly I don't think I have the patience to stand here and fiddle with this dial for 20 minutes. But we'll go for 15. So as it's simmering, let's turn that on again, see? As it's simmering, I'm going to just keep an eye on it, stir it every once in a while. And I'll be back in 15 minutes. Okay, we are nearing the home stretch here, so I'm going to talk to you a little bit and show you what progress we have here. So as you can see, I'm still adjusting this dial every few seconds. I have the lid off. I'm stirring it from time to time. So basically, it's almost done. One thing I've been demonstrating this whole time but haven't really explained is how to open a pot that is boiling or steaming. So when you open it, make sure if the handle's hot that you have something to cover it with. Open the lid away from yourself. Alright, simmer down now. Okay, the reason why you want to open the lid away from yourself is because the steam that suddenly rushes out, actually you can get a steam burn. You can get a burn from steam. This is going to send the steam rushing out there away from me. If I open it towards me, all the steam would be coming up directly towards me. That's not what we want. So always open it away from you. Alright, so our next step is actually going to be to just let this cool in the pan, and after it's cool I can put it away. You don't ever want to put food away while it's steaming hot, because if you put something away in a container, close the lid, stick it in the refrigerator while it's steaming hot, the steam is actually going to gather in your container and the food is going to stay kind of warm for a long time. Food that's just kind of warm, not hot and not cold, but just kind of warm for a long time, that's actually the perfect environment for growing bacteria. So that's why you always want to let your food cool off first before you put it in your container. Then you put it in your container, make sure it's totally cooled off, then you can put your lid on and stick it in the refrigerator. Let me just show you what we're going to be doing next, if you choose to. A lot of people like to strain their finished sauce through a sieve to get out these skins that you're seeing and these seeds. Actually, I like the sauce to be chunky, so I don't do that, but something I do like to do is I use my pastry cutter or my pastry blender, which I've showed you before. I forgot to bring that today, so actually I decided to improvise and use this apple cutter thing, and it kind of works the same way as the pastry cutter would. I'm just going to push it down a few times all throughout my sauce to just break up any last bits that have not been broken up already through the cooking and the stirring. That way it won't be too chunky, but it will still have nice bits of skin and seeds in there, which I do like. Not everyone likes that though, so if you don't, you can strain it through a sieve. A sieve is one of those things, if you don't know, it's like a little cup made out of metal on a long handle, and the cup part is made out of really finely woven mesh. So that's a sieve. You can put your sauce in the sieve and then just push it through with a spoon or even with your hand. The seeds and the skin will stay inside and the smooth sauce part will come out. Alright, and one last thing, if you're thinking that this looks sort of like baby food, you'd be right. You actually could feed this to a baby. You'd want to strain it first, obviously, for a baby. But yeah, you could do that. And obviously, you'd want to let it cool first. So, this is a great way to save money. If you have a garden, you can make your own sauce. Or you can buy them cheap at a farmer's market. Buy the tomatoes cheap at a good farmer's market in bulk. You don't have to buy tomato sauce. This sauce is actually a base sauce that you can use in other recipes. So you might notice that I didn't put in any herbs and spices and things. All it has in it is just a little bit of salt and a little bit of honey or sugar if you want to use sugar instead. So that means it's a base sauce. You can use it in other stuff. So you could put it back on the stovetop later, add oregano, whatever other kinds of spices that you like, basil, and you could make a pasta sauce. I don't eat pasta, so I don't do that. But what I do like to do is put tomato sauce in soup. So if I'm making soup, I could put a few scoops of this into the soup. Also, what I have tried so far is I put a couple scoops of this into eggs and then scramble them and then cook it. It's really good in scrambled eggs. So those are just a few ideas. If you have any other ideas, let us know. This is also going to be posted on our social media where you can leave us a comment. Alright, I hope you enjoyed our time in the kitchen today, and see you again next week. Bye!